I'm back with another video, and in this one I just want to talk about why I decided to leave my original career as a nurse. I was going through like this identity crisis for a bit because nursing was all that I knew. Like, nursing was what my parents were proud of me for. They were proud that I became a nurse, and this just came down to me living off of other people's expectations because I'm trying to force myself to stay in this nursing field, but I really hate it to my core. So that was a big lesson for me to really learn what it is that I needed for myself and for me to feel happy, for me to feel fulfilled. So I just want to give you a little backstory of my journey and where I've come from. It's funny because I didn't have the desire to become a nurse before I got into the nursing program. But once I got in the program, like, that was all I wanted. So I'm like, all right, this has to happen. I would write my name with like RN behind it and just really envision it for myself. I did know that I wanted to help people in some type of way. Like, I always had a passion to help people. So originally, I go into college, I start taking my prerequisites for like a healthcare career. And I go to the guidance counselor, and she recommends that I take the nursing assessment in their program. And I'm like, okay, I got all the credits, why not? So I took it and I got into their nursing program. I never said to myself I want to become a nurse, but I did it. I got into their nursing program, and I'm like, okay, I can do this, So I started that program. It was a 2-year program. It was very challenging. So me being the overachiever and the person that I went for it. I ended up excelling. So I took this whole program, and I learned so much in this program. It was ridiculous. And I learned that being a nurse was a lot, like, it entailed a lot more than I thought it did. But I'm there. I'm doing it. I'm making A's. I'm just doing it. Fast forward to graduation. I graduate. That's that. So next is the NCLEX, which is the test you got to take to actually get your licensure to become a nurse. So NCLEX, I was getting super anxious and worried about that because I'm like, what if I fail? I don't want to have to take this test again. So I took my NCLEX. I graduated in May of 2015, and I took my NCLEX in July. So I studied for like a solid 2 months. I take the test, and then the computer just shuts off at 75 questions. That either means I did really, really well, or I sucked, like I blew it. So I get even more anxious and more worried, more nervous about my results. And I'm just freaking out I think it took a few days for me to get my results. So that was a very long story. But anyway, I passed the test in the least amount of questions. I was super excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can be a nurse now. Started my first nursing job like a couple months after that. Well, after my first job, I was at like this independent living facility. And I decided to actually, that I wanted to go into like a hospital setting. So I'm like, all right, it's time for me to move on, to use my skills. I don't want to forget nothing. So I went to the hospital setting. I went to this hospital that was so tough. It was so tough, but I was excelling in it, and I was getting praise from like this doctor, and I just was feeling real good about myself. I had a lot of traumatizing events happen. It's crazy when you're a nurse because like I never seen a dead body before becoming a nurse, and then that just became the norm. So it's definitely a bunch of like PTSD and like all types of emotions when you're a nurse. So I was on this emotional roller coaster ride. I decided to go to that place where I could use more of my clinical skills, and then I got burned out. I wasn't eating lunch. I wasn't drinking water. I was barely going to the bathroom for 12-hour shifts. And on top of the 12-hour shifts, they wanted us to work in addition to those, because it was 3 days on, 4 days off. But on my 4 days off, I needed to recuperate and recharge. So I think throughout my whole nursing career, I never picked up overtime with like any of the jobs I was at. But anyway, so that happened, and I got real burnt out. started to slowly lose my love for it. So I'm like, all right, let me change direction here and go somewhere else to see how that is. So I ended up going to this reputable teaching hospital in Philly, and I was so excited. When I tell you, this was one of the things that broke me in nursing, because this role, I was floating to different floors. I was on a different floor each day that I went to work. It was just a lot of stress. It was such a heightened level of stress and anxiety because I didn't know where anything was. Like, I was responsible for these patients' lives, and I didn't even know where like basic stuff was because I was on a different floor every day. But anyway, I'm getting stressed just thinking about it. So that happened, and I left that job because I'm like, I cannot do this. Like, I know what my limitations are, and I know like how far I can push myself. I did not want to continue to push myself at that job because the anxiety that I felt before work, during work, and after work, worrying about that anxiety, worrying about having to go back to work, worrying about all that stuff. Like, it was so mentally and physically exhausting. I was drained. I was anxious. I was everything. I was dreading going to work. So I decided after a few months to put my 2 weeks notice in, and like I actually went in and talked to the nursing manager, and I told her what was happening. And it's crazy because after that, I'm like, all right, so my last day is going to be blah, blah, blah. I had a shift after that. It ran me out of there. It was so bad. Like, it was so many emotions, so much anxiety, so much frustration, it was just way too taxing on my mental and my physical health. So I ended up talking to the manager, like, I can't come back. Can't. And after that, I just had different roles in nursing. I was everywhere. Because I would listen to people say things like, oh, you're going to find your specialty. You're going to find your niche. You just got to stick with it. You just got to keep doing your thing and showing up. And you're going to find that. You're going to find what you love to do. Never found it. I had like 17,000 different jobs in nursing. Nothing really made my heart sing. And that's how I know I needed to get out. Because it's like, at this point, I'm forcing it. Like, it's so much resistance against what I'm doing. And I'm trying to lessen that resistance. I'm trying to do these different things, but it's not working because this is not something I'm passionate about anymore. Because I kept getting burned out because I didn't know how to handle that at the time. So just to share, I've been in long-term acute care, ICU, med surge. The place I was floating for med surge was all different types of med surge floors. So like transplant floors, cardiac floors, observation units. And I did home care for a while, which was hell. It was so horrible. That was my only salary paying job. Like, everything else was hourly. So I did that. I think that was the second worst because it was salary, but I wasn't just working 8 hours a day. I was literally working, like 20 something hours a day. It was so bad. I would like fall asleep trying to document. That was the worst thing. I would fall asleep trying to document what I had to document from seeing these people in their homes. Because you would see everybody in their homes. You would do your own care. You would do all that good stuff. And then it was time for you to chart. And I never got good with like the charting. It was so extensive. So that was just something I didn't like. Like, I would literally have to wake up in the middle of the night to finish charting. And it's just like, I'm not even getting paid anything. It looked like a nice salary on the outside, but when you divide it based on how many hours I was really working and how many hours I was documenting and trying to catch up on stuff, it was not worth it. So I left that job. It was causing me way too much stress. And I've worked at a prison. So home care, prison. I worked at a pharmaceutical company. So after that, I think the one I liked the most actually was at a primary care office. That was cool. I had a real good a real good team there too, like really good. So that was cool because it allowed me to have a little more time, to myself, and to not have to worry as much about like what was going on at work. But that job didn't pay me enough. So people always say that you gotta like take a pay cut if you want that balance, or you want to be less stressed and anxious. And that's really not fair if you think about it. I feel like you should still get paid well if you are at a family care practice, or if you're somewhere else. Like, it's some jobs really try to lowball you. But this was before COVID, and they like got better with the rates and everything since then. Most places are on board. So that was then. So basically I had to sacrifice the coins for my sanity, which wasn't cool. So this is what I mean. You got to put yourself before these jobs, because I was in a dilemma initially. Like, I wasn't making enough where I was, where I was kind of comfortable at. But then they started to try to like add more duties to my role. So I'm like, I'm really not making what I should be making. So there was that. I was torn because I loved my team, and the place I was working at was like 5 minutes away from where I lived at the time. And it was just like a, in and out, like a 9 to 5 or 7 to 4, whatever I was doing. And it's so easy to get comfortable in that. It's so easy to get complacent and to just be like, this is just what it is. This is what it's going to be. I'm getting a paycheck. I'm comfortable. I'm just going to stay here. So I was doing that for a little bit. And I think I was there for, I think, a year. So once COVID hit, these opportunities kept popping up for like these COVID vaccines, and it was giving these crazy rates. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, should I do this? Should I do that? Because they're paying real well. And I just was like kind of prepping myself, because something in me was tugging at me like, you need to do this. So I was torn because I had a real good team. I was 5 minutes away from home. Like, I was comfortable where I was. So I loved my boss so much. So I felt really bad. I felt really guilty because I wanted to leave. I wanted to choose me and my future over a job and over what my bosses and my coworkers would think. So I was really torn with this, and I felt so bad. I felt so anxious about speaking to my boss. But I tell this story because at the end of the day, it's not about your boss. It's not about your job. It's not about you being comfortable. It's not about you letting your team down or hurting anybody's feelings. It's really about what kind of life you see for yourself. It's about the happiness that you want for yourself and going after that happiness no matter what. So I told my boss that I plan to travel, for financial reasons or whatever. I told her. And of course they were sad that I was leaving, but at the same time, it's just a job. They're like, all right, we're going to need that letter of resignation so I can start putting in for somebody else to take your position. That happened right shortly after I gave my notice. I'm like, okay. These jobs will replace you like this. So I came across this vaccine contract where they needed nurses to give vaccines in Cali. So I'm like, definitely, I'm there. I decided to take a travel nurse contract in California. This is my first time going to California. Never been there. This was definitely the first time I traveled out the state alone. So I took a contract to California, and I was one of the nurses that was given the first batches of the COVID vaccine. So I'm like, oh, this is cool. They were paying me like a super great rate, and I got to like explore stuff on my days off and everything like that. So that worked out real well. I think that was my favorite. This was the best thing I could have did for myself and for my life, like hands down. Even though I was scared as hell and I didn't know where I was going, I didn't know anybody or anything, I was literally by myself, like completely. It was the best thing I could have did. Not stay where I am because I was comfortable, not stay where I am to appease my bosses or my coworkers or anything like that. I was out, okay? And it was just such a great experience. Like, I got to meet so many great people. I got to do great things. I got to be a part of history. We vaccinated 52,000 people, with the first batches of vaccines that they sent out. I was given those vaccines. I was given so many vaccines a day. It was so worth it. That was the best job I've had. But they eventually didn't need us anymore. So I left. So I became an entrepreneur. And I'm still helping people, which I love, but I'm helping them in a different way. I'm not helping people by like drugging them up anymore. Like, I'm literally helping people in a way that they can help themselves, in a way that's natural, in a way that is just going to make their lives so much better. And I'm so freaking passionate about this. And this is really what drives me. It drives me. So if you are feeling stagnant, you feeling burnt out, you feeling stuck, you don't know which way to go, you wondering if it's selfish to choose yourself over a crumbling healthcare system, this is your sign. This is your sign that you have to do what you feel will make you happy. Not what other people expect you to do or other people expect you to be. Because if you do it that way, you will not be happy. You will be living the life that they think you should live, not your own life. So this is your sign. If you was thinking about getting out of nursing, because it's definitely tough. Everybody say nursing is not for the weak. I know I'm not a weak person because I endured some things, okay? But even if you don't, you're not weak. Don't let these people and their beliefs of you being a weak person, if you can't handle nursing or you quitting, like, none of that matters. All that matters is you being able to be happy with your life and with yourself. And you not constantly burning yourself out doing something you don't even... If you get burnt out all the time anyway, it's because you're doing something that you're not passionate about, that you don't love, and you're not taking care of yourself in the process. So that's all I got for you. Thanks for listening to my story. That is my nursing journey in a nutshell. And I'm so happy to be where I am today. If you got any questions, any comments about your own journey, leave me a comment below. I would love to connect with you. Just chat. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more videos. I upload a couple times a week, 2 to 3 times a week. So yes, that's all I got for you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.